Good morning. It is bright and early on March 1st. Well, maybe early, but not so bright. But to answer the questions, did this personal account confirm or dispel any of your knowledge of OCD? It dispelled. I think my only example of OCD was that movie by Jack Nicholson, As Good as It Gets. I've never had a client or a resident or close friend, an acquaintance that's had OCD, so that's my knowledge of it. So that personal account really did dispel what I thought it was. It's, for lack of a better word, she was very normal and used her disorder to help her. I thought that was good. It was a good thing. And you know how OCD is usually related to like cleaning and being organized, being very tidy. And one thing I learned was that, the obsessive thoughts are there, and the compulsion, the behaviors are actually helping to keep the obsessive thoughts, like to keep the anxiety, to keep the distress, lower. That I didn't really understand, and now it kind of makes more sense. I mean, and of course the time of it, how much time it takes up. That's another thing I learned about that. Another thing from that video, how she has to mentally prepare for her day, and how she actually balances her work and her play quite well, which a lot of people struggle with, balancing that. So, I mean, that was a way that her OCD was actually a positive factor for her. Also, let's see excuse me. Okay, what are some biological, psychological, and social variables you will pay attention to if I ever have a client who has that? I guess biologically, I would look on how it's affecting them physically. Whether, the OCD is destroying their skin by washing their hands too much, or if the distress and the anxiety is causing, physical problems like raising their blood pressure, and that could affect, them later on in life with heart problems, things like that. So I would look at biologically just what parts of the disorder could affect them now and in the future, and medications needed for that. I would also psychologically and socially, one thing from that video that changed my thinking was to also look at how the person is managing their OCD, how it's a positive, not always. I think sometimes we think we have to make the person normal. They have to act normal. But, she was using her OCD to kind of help her get better grades. So I guess like a social variable is how does it help their life? Not always how, yes, because usually we focus on what's the negative, but maybe there are some positive aspects of the OCD that, like her example of getting better grades, of rewriting her notes. So, and how she chose not to take medication, but to do more cognitive behavioral therapy instead, so that she could keep some of those aspects that were helping her, instead of taking those away, because those were a part of her. And I think that's important too, to look at the client and just ask them what parts, because they're coming to you for a reason, because they can't control their OCD, but asking them, okay, what parts are detrimental, what parts do we need to work on changing, but what parts are okay to stay. So I think looking and asking those questions is part of the social variable, and also psychological too. Keeping their anxiety in check and making it manageable. Do they need medication? So I think I've answered all those questions. I did learn a lot. I didn't realize too that a lot of the times the compulsions and the or to balance things, you know, to be symmetrical, things like that. That's why they tap 2 on one side and tap 2 on the other side to make sure everything's balanced, which in a way kind of does make sense, you know, in there, you know, in that process. She did a very good job of explaining it. I think that's all. My name is Kathryn. Thank you.